Satvik Gupta. He's originally from India, with his first language being Hindi and his second language is English. His piece, his story, A Piece of Mercy, was published in our Spring 21 edition. And Satvik is an Indian writer whose work has been published in the Abstract Elephant magazine, the Alpur Post, and the Literary Herald, among others. Satvik is about to embark on a doctoral journey, which he hopes will strengthen his understanding of the ontology of human existence, and he currently lives with his family in Jammu near the Himalayan foothills in India. And Satvik, whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'll be reading a piece of flash fiction which I wrote. It's called Cesium and Strontium, and I'll start with a little context behind this piece. So this story, it's inspired by a writer, Svetlana Alexievich. Her book was called Chernobyl Prayer, and it is a collection of testimonies of people whose life was affected directly or indirectly by the nuclear disaster of Chernobyl. So although I have no direct association with that event, but upon reading that book, I was overcome with the need to express myself, to read something in order to celebrate the undying fortitude and perseverance of the people who braved this atrocity. So I'll begin, now that you're acquainted with the context, I'll begin my story. Cesium and Strontium. It's the 10th anniversary of my husband's death, so I thought I would celebrate. He would have liked it. Valery, my Valery, he had volunteered as a cleaner during the aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster. He had spent all his life here in Pripyat, underneath the towering shadow of the power plant, he would say. Minutes after the explosion, he had made up his mind. There was no convincing him otherwise. Valery was like that, a patriot and an optimist, both of which virtues ended up killing him. At the sight of the burning reactor, he was one of the many nameless and faceless men who solemnly performed their duties in the background. One day he'd be fetching boron, the next day uprooting soil, shooting infected livestock, or vacating nearby buildings. I, on the other hand, was moved to the adjacent town, but Valery would come to see me often. And during that time, only once did I see him break down in front of me. And it was when he had just uprooted the soil and the plants that we had grown together, all our crops and our fruits. And with all the death and suffering surrounding him, it was this which broke him down, which made him embrace me and cry like a child. He eventually received a Medal of Commendation from the state. Somehow he managed to get a picture taken by one of his comrades. He was in his worker's uniform, the medal was pressed up against his chest, and his rifle was slung back across his shoulder, and he wore the brightest smile imaginable. It was as if he himself had successfully tamed the disaster. He looked invincible, my Valery. A year later, he died from cancer caused by that very radiation. The doctor told me perhaps Chernobyl had nothing to do with it, but I knew the truth. We all did. Still, I'm glad that his work had not taken him near the heart of the reactor, because I had heard that men in there had died unbearable deaths. I thank the heavens every day for my Valery's quiet, peaceful departure. In the end, they gave me his belongings, whatever was left of him, and some money to restart my life. I used the money to smuggle myself back to our old house in Pripyat. It still lay within the radiation zone, but where else was I supposed to go? Once it was diagnosed that Valery had in fact died because of radiation, they buried him under many layers of concrete along with some of his comrades. He was a walking nuclear reactor. They all were. So they buried them under the earth in concrete lined with lead. I hated that place. He couldn't hear me from under there. I felt as if our connection was severed forever. So as soon as I returned to our home, I took his uniform along with his Chernobyl medal and I buried it all in our backyard. I clipped a cutting of the rose bush on the other side of the town, dipped it in honey, and planted it on top of his grave. Now he rests there, next to the potatoes I'm growing and underneath a rose cutting, and we talk to each other every day. The entire neighborhood is quiet. There are more animals here than people. Only some people, like myself, have found our way back here. We nod and smile as we pass each other through the ghostly streets. I try to grow my own food in the backyard, which includes potatoes and some other crops, whichever the ones are easier to grow. These vegetables are radioactive. You shouldn't be eating them, said the soldiers who patrolled this area. I invited them to dinner once, but they declined. I offered them my potatoes. They refused to touch them. They are good kids, though. Every week they bring me essentials like butter, bread, eggs, and whatnot. So for the anniversary, I prepared pancakes today. The soldiers, they brought me some wine. I did most of the washing and cleaning in the morning. Cesium and Strontium followed me around the house. Cesium is my cat, Strontium my dog. They found me last year. The gifts of Chernobyl, Cesium and Strontium. Since not many people live around these areas, wildlife has flourished here. I have seen elks, wolves, foxes, and bears strolling around the road nonchalantly. Strontium ran away once. He did not come back for 2 days. I thought the wolves had eaten him, but he eventually returned and hasn't left my side since. One of the patrolmen accepted my invitation for lunch today. His name is Yuri. He helped me set up the table and 2 chairs in the backyard. I brought out the pancakes. We had some wine afterwards. Yuri thanked me and left. I poured myself another glass of wine and watched him leave. I often wonder how different life would have been if Chernobyl had never happened. You think too much, Valeri would say. The sun has come out. I feel its warmth brushing against my skin. I decide to sit down on the ground, closer to where he rests. My Katya, he used to call me. He would hold me in a tight embrace and whisper in my ear, my Katya, we shall grow old together, right here, in our very home. And I would smile at him and his undying hopefulness. I still do when I reminisce about it, because he was right. We did find a way to grow old together, and that too, in our very home. Strontium has crept up under my feet. Cesium is sitting over by the window. The potato leaves are swaying with a northbound breeze, and the rose cutting near Valeri is finally shooting leaves. Thank you.